Hello everyone, Nathan here, and yesterday I got an email telling me that Burnout Paradise was going to be getting a remaster, and I have to admit I wasn't particularly thrilled about that. I mean sure, I liked the game when it came out, but it seems an odd choice for a remaster. And that got me thinking, what is it that makes me see something like the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy and think it's a fantastic thing, while I see some remasters and ports, like the seemingly endless re-releases of Skyrim, as a bad thing? Well, today I want to talk about what makes a good remaster and what are the qualifying factors for a game that should be remastered. So let's start with the obvious. A remaster needs to be of a game that was beloved in the first place. No one is going to be bothered about a Ride to Hell Retribution remaster, whereas something like the Spyro remaster that's been talked about recently would definitely get a lot of attention because it has a fan base behind it and people are nostalgic for a game that they remember to be great. A remaster should also significantly improve the original game. I don't just want surface level stuff here, I want objective improvements to the game that we got initially. For my example here, I'm going to use GTA 5. Now you can say that this isn't a real remaster and it's just a port, but I'm going to disagree, as the game initially came out on PS3 and Xbox 360, and then better versions came out later on the current gen consoles and PC. And it's the PC version where we saw the real improvement in this game, and it was huge. Being able to play at 60 FPS and having hardware that could actually render the amazing world that Rockstar had created made the game feel so much better than the original release, and the addition of a first person mode gave a new way to experience the game, and it's testament to those improvements that there are a lot of people out there who picked up GTA 5 twice or even 3 times. You could also look at games like the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection for an example of this, where new, more powerful hardware was utilised to give players a better experience with the game than the first time it launched, improving frame rate, graphics and responsiveness. And honestly, I feel like the Nathan Drake collection was a perfect setup for Uncharted 4 coming out. On the other hand though, you've got games that don't even correct the problems they had when they originally released. We can see this in games like Skyrim Special Edition, which still has the game-breaking bugs from the first time it came out, and no new content was included in the remaster either. Instead, they chose to make the water look a bit nicer and add a few graphical effects like dynamic depth of field and god rays. And yes, the game still runs on PS4 and Xbox One at 30 FPS. Is it slightly better than the original? Probably. But it doesn't address the big problems that Skyrim had back when it originally released in 2011. Instead, it puts on a thin layer of makeup, and for me, that's not enough. I would have much preferred that they put the resources and time that it took to make the special edition into the next Elder Scrolls game. Next, a remaster can be good if it offers a player a chance to play a game that they can't anymore. So for something like the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, we're seeing games that are around 20 years old, and you can't expect people to just be able to pull out their PlayStation 1 and have it still working and easy to plug in and play. Apart from anything else, a lot of modern TVs don't even have the connectors for this on the back of them anymore, so you're effectively wading into a world of adapters if you want to do that. It's also not like it's available on a last gen console or PC, so there's no reasonable way that you can expect most people to be able to play the original Crash Bandicoot games. Besides which, having that amount of time between the original releases and the remaster actually makes the game more enjoyable in of itself. It means that players have had time to get nostalgic for the game and actually feel excited about playing it again. There are so many moments where you'd forget about a particular level or boss fight, and the memories come flooding back when you play through the Insane Trilogy. Whereas when you play a remaster of a game that only came out a few years ago, you remember so much more straight off the bat, and you don't find yourself rediscovering those magical moments because you already know they're coming. The amount of time that had passed and the massive technical improvements in hardware since the 1990s made the Crash remaster feel like a new game, and one that I'm happy that dev time and resources were put into. When you compare that to something like the Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition, it's a bit bizarre. The time between the original release and its remaster was only 2 years, and though the game was being moved from last gen consoles to current gen, it was already available on PC, and anyone who enjoyed the game so much that they would have been interested in a remaster had only relatively recently played the game. It originally came out on PS3, Xbox 360 and PC, so most people who were interested in a game like this had ample opportunity to play it when it first released. It's not like it was an exclusive, so a large portion of the gaming community missed out on it. If you had one of the mainstream consoles or a PC and were interested in this, you could have played it. Even with that in mind, it seems like there wasn't much improvement from the original to the remaster either. and it ended up feeling like Square Enix were trying to get paid twice for the same work. And you get pretty much the same experience whether you played the remaster or the original. And that brings me on to a remaster also could be viable because it offers you a new way to play, a new experience. And I think this explains why I'm okay with most of the remasters and ports that are coming to the Nintendo Switch. And I think you know where this is going. We're going to talk about Dark Souls. The fact that the Switch will let players take Dark Souls on the go with them is going to offer fans of the series a new experience and something that they've never been able to do with a Dark Souls game before. This alone makes the remaster of this one a good idea for me. If they just release the original Dark Souls as is, but with the portability that the Switch offers, I feel it would be a compelling enough product for a lot of people to be interested in buying. The fact that From Software though will be making improvements to the original game then is just a cherry on top of the cake for me. You'll notice though that the Switch is the focus here, and it is for a lot of the media too, as you'll hear a lot about Dark Souls coming to the Nintendo Switch, but not so much about the fact that it's also coming to PS4 and Xbox One, and I think that's just purely because it'll be the same game that fans played back in 2011 on those systems. There won't be anything new. Now, I'm not saying no one's interested in the PlayStation and Xbox versions, but because the Switch offers a new way of experiencing this great game, I feel it's by far the most interesting of the remastered versions. And honestly, I think that the portability that the Switch offers makes it the perfect remaster machine. It's even the only time that I've seen a Skyrim re-release and thought, oh, that'll be decent when it comes out on Switch. Now you can extend that logic to other new technologies such as VR, as that offers a new way to play some of your old favourites too, and we've seen this pretty recently with the release of LA Noire VR Case Files. LA Noire was a great game in my opinion, but I wouldn't want to play through it again purely because it has slightly improved graphics, especially as it's a mystery game and I already know who did it. What does sound enticing though is immersing myself into the world of 1947 LA using a VR headset. Finally, I want to talk about multiplayer games, and it's a bit rare that these have been remastered. Most games that get a remaster or a re-release tend to be single player, but it's something that seems to be starting to become more regular. So I want to talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, because it doesn't really meet any of the criteria I've laid out so far, other than the fact that it is a beloved game. The game wasn't massively improved in my opinion in the remaster, people could still play the game since it was out on last gen consoles and PC, and the remaster is only letting you play it the same way you used to. You sit down with a controller or a keyboard and mouse and you shoot people. However, I still think the idea of this remaster was a good one. Now, I want to clarify that I don't like the way Activision went about it, trying to squeeze money out of their player base at every turn, and I actually never picked this one up because I didn't want to pay them money that supported these dodgy practices. But I did quite like the concept here, and the reason for that is player count. Now, I know Modern Warfare has a single player campaign that a lot of people absolutely loved, but it's fair to say that Call of Duty games in general are focused on the multiplayer. That's the first thing people look at in newer Call of Duty games, and often you'll find players who never even played the campaign who've put in hundreds of hours into the multiplayer. And when multiplayer is your game's focus, you need to have a large and active player base, and Modern Warfare no longer had that. Its players had moved on to other games or consoles, including the later COD releases, and although I'm sure you could still find a match, the experience wasn't as good as when the game was new, so a remaster was a good option to get players interested, build up that player count, and let people experience the game properly again. Now, as I've said, I think the implementation was poor, but I'm okay with multiplayer games remastering to regain their player base, since there are a lot of multiplayer games out there that even though they were loved when they came out, you just can't play them anymore, either because the players all left, or in some circumstances, the servers have been shut down entirely. I think overall then, we have to take each remaster that's announced on a case-by-case basis, and games that I look at getting remastered and think, what is the point of that? There'll be people out there who are really excited for them, but in general, if a remaster doesn't improve on the original game, if it doesn't give players a chance to play something that they can't easily anymore, and if it doesn't offer players a new way of playing something that they've loved, then I don't feel it should be remastered, and I'd much rather see devs put their time into new, fresh games for us to enjoy. Anyway, that's just my take, and I'd love to hear yours. Do you think remastering games is a good thing? Are you okay with almost any game that gets remastered? Let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, I'd also be very grateful if you'd click that like button, and subscribe for more like this if you haven't already. Anyway, thanks for watching, I've been Nathan, and I'll see you next time.